interested in your time. Government, business, and academia is my colleague Burns, and building partnerships to solve local problems. Well, before that, I just want to put in context, as it says here, the role of local government here in the U.S. And because I teach government and I teach law, that's most of where my work is. As Ms. Rock talked about the Community Reinvestment Act, and look at the statute, right, which is the legislation that really sets forth exactly, right, how this the Community Reinvestment Act works. So typically here, for those of you not familiar with U.S. politics, we have three governments: local government, state government, and federal government. And they all play an integral role. And unlike other countries where you have the national government taking a lead in education, don't get it confused by thinking President Trump, Secretary of Education, really determines what's the national policy per se of education. Here in the U.S., education is really controlled by the state. So the 50 states sets course their education in terms of policy, in terms of their chancellery, the chancellor's office, the state education department. So, and including higher ed. So that said, the role here have been on the local side. For instance, CUNY, which is the City University of New York, that you're welcome here by the enroll in 26 other colleges, including law school, medical school, School of Labor, the Gutman College, right? All of those are funded by the state legislature. Now we have our community colleges, right, which are funded primarily by the local government, right? I think some of our faculty members really still not even sure about that. They just know they work for CUNY. But if you work on the system in Kingsborough, BMCC, your check will be signed by the city controller, right? The only way the funding will come in for capital project is from the state. So this is why we teach a load of 3 or 2, and they teach 5, right? So contractually, everything is different, which brings me to what is the role. So therefore, the local government takes ownership, and this is the word, the reason why the community colleges, because the legislature's role in terms of what role in funding these institutions, as you just said in your presentation, will play in developing, uplifting the community, not only educating the community, right? What is the role of government spending millions of dollars? For instance, CUNY budget is, Dean, I'm sure you know the role of the CUNY budget is $3 billion. Billion, larger than many other small other countries and economies. So we run our system on $3 billion. Yesterday in my presentation, I said that $24 billion is spent alone on K through 12, right? And we have 60% of our students graduate in time, right? So we have serious issues here. Now that leads me now in terms of the role. So in the new paradigm where the government is spending money for dollars are really looking for that partnership. They're looking, for instance, CUNY's budget, Medgare's budget was $55–60 million, Dean, somewhere around there, right? Right, annually, right? Just of one of the institutions. What is the return on investment in the state investing in an institution? And work like what Dean Roll and Ms. Rock are doing are certainly part of that. Because when I'm there in Albany and listening to the Committee in Higher Education, Committee in Small Businesses, this is what they're looking at. They're looking to see what, when you come back to ask for funding, how is that partnership is going to strengthen the community? How is it is going to build problems to solve problems? Because there are a number of problems in all aspects. We just did with Dr. Flateau, right, the health disparity, where the governor gave $1.4 billion, right, to address critical issues that has been affecting certain neighborhoods. And what the governor said out of that budget of over $150 billion, New York budget is the second largest in the entire United States, state budget. California is the first. So out of that budget of over $169 billion, the governor saw it fit to say $1.2 billion to cover certain areas of central Brooklyn to deal with what? Social ills. Why is it there's a certain percentage of certain communities in the 21st century not being elevated yet? Why there's still dropout? Why there's still crime? Why the fact is that you have pretty much free education and your students are still not graduating. So the whole new paradigm is that if we're going to invest in our communities, we're going to start with the education, right? The academic institution. So the new paradigm, again, is strengthening that relationship, both with academia, relationship with the private sector, so which is critical as well, because we have all these businesses here that can benefit certainly from the institution of higher learning. So one of those ways they do that is Startup New York. How many of you have heard of Startup New York? Right. So the mega folks have heard of Startup New York. So I'm going to go and just click here in Startup New York. Can you see? Startup New York helps New York expand businesses through tax-based incentives and other innovative academic partnerships. Startup New York offers a new and expanded businesses opportunity to operate tax-free for 10 years. That's very critical. For 10 years, are eligible university or colleges, campuses in New York State. Partnering with these schools give businesses direct access to advanced research, laboratories, development resources, and experts in the key industry. All of you guys here are experts in this field. So the governor and the new initiative is to push more of the startup. And Dean, we are indeed a partner, right?
Right. Our site is at Brooklyn Navy Yard.
At Brooklyn Navy Yard, right. So where you have these startup companies would be now looking to partner with an academic institution, right? To be a new business in New York State or existing New York business, relocating or expanding within the state. Partner with a New York State college or university. Create jobs and contribute to the economic development of what? The local community. Of the local community. So again, this whole new paradigm is in terms of bringing together the public-private partnership, right? PPP. How do we bring that together? So that is critical. And in doing so, it is important for Medgar and other institutions to really, as you talked about partnership with businesses, let other businesses know that we are here and how we can play a role with our dynamic school of businesses that is certainly accredited, thanks to Dr. Egby and Dr. V and many others who've worked hard for that to happen. So that is something critical that we must continue to work on. I also wanted to talk a little bit about recent news in the interest of time with Amazon. But before Amazon, there is an issue here. Amazon was coming to New York, as you know. It failed through a number of political reasons. But here is this article. Amazon partners with New York colleges on a cloud computing job training program. A day after Amazon detailed plans to fund computer science classes in New York area high schools in an effort to expand its tech pipeline for the new HTQ in Queens, company this morning announced a second educational initiative that sees its teaming up with New York City, right, and state colleges. And I know, Dean, you were ready. Our dean was ready, had the briefings, the meeting to work with them, right? Yeah. I know you were, right? And the list of schools here to create a cloud computing certificate. And Dr. Ann, there is a computer person, knows about that. The program, which begins this fall, will be offered to tens of thousands of students across these universities, Amazon says. Okay, that's an example here. This was recently, again, despite the deal did fail. But my point is that when we look at Amazon and industries like that are coming to New York, that was all part of the equation. Because the government now is saying, local government and state government, it is that we no longer are going to get involved in a political or business deal, as we did 5 or 10 years ago, without connecting you to the institution of higher learning. We want the institution of higher learning to play a strategic role and a significant role, right, with you as you grow your businesses, as you partner with them, as you educate, as the school can play a role in research and technology, which is what's part of Startup New York. So this is certainly exciting. I'm sure many of you probably in your institution may have something similar, but we've had something similar here also called empowerment zones and enterprise zones, right, where the governor or the president can designate certain areas for certain tax-based benefit. And many small businesses such as barbershop get certain amount of tax breaks that they won't pay taxes for several years, right? And they also get a grant, startup grant. You have someone that has a productive flow of business going in and out, but that person must connect it to an institution of higher learning or a local development corporation to help guide them on their business so they can get anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 in revolving loans, and they don't have to pay back in terms of 5 to 10 years, low interest, because we want to stimulate the economy. But in closing, all of this is really part of the initiative in the role of colleges, higher education, playing a key role, just as Startup New York. I like the phrase here where it says, students and institutions receive significant tax benefit and can leverage valuable intellectual and physical access of the partners in higher education, right? Which is key here. So that is something that we can continue to do. Since its launching in 2014, it has grown rapidly. Connected SUNY, this is our state school, which we have 64 campuses with world-class colleges and universities. Because when, in closing, really, Dean, I don't know if we have gotten any new computers recently, but part of the new tech initiative is when the state is upgrading and try to upgrade universities for the state-of-the-art computer and programming and so forth. They know that in 2 or 3 years that becomes obsolete. So what is that relationship where community high schools and others can really use those? There's a lot of waste. A lot of waste that happens in the next 3 years when that software, that computer no longer exists. So again, the partnership really is to really bring together the role of academia in solving problems, right? Not only creating jobs, but look at local issues. Like I said, the governor gave $1.4 billion to deal with certain health disparities and certain communities' issues. There are more monies that will be coming out, again, for entrepreneurship to get these businesses started up, but it must be connected to an academic institution. So we play a significant role. And finally, those in policy-making position are really seeing the value and the benefit. But it's incumbent upon us, the leadership, the school, president, vice president, the deans, and our government relation folks to really work hand in hand in tandem to make sure that the fruition, that it's not just all in talk and in words, that we do a solid job, that we do our own marketing, that we do our own outreach, that we do our own research to tie in these these businesses, that we can certainly play a significant role in them, and vis-a-vis whatever the small problem in our communities are, we don't need to turn to this government to fix it. Because as it says, my former boss, Mike Bloomberg, said, I went to business school because I like finding solutions to problems. He said, I'm an engineer by trade because engineers find problems, look at problems and find solutions. So again, we've had a number of initiatives in the city that we have worked with several high-end institutions, and I would like to see my goal that Medgar will embark in a strong strategic role in the next few years to make sure that we play a significant role. Thank you.